You have to be in relationships. There's just no way around it. The question is, are you good at it? And do you know your way around different types of relationships? The hard thing about exiting relationships is it will cost you something. The harder thing about exiting relationships is if you don't exit it now, it will cost you more. Hey everybody, welcome back to the RMG Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Reed Moore, here with Jake Bartlett, my co-host.
I am here and present.
All right, we're ready to rock. Hey guys, as always, go to rmgagentpodcast.com for all the action guides and all the other goodies from this episode, as well as our bonus episodes. Lots of good stuff there. Join us on YouTube, join us on Facebook, and go find us on anywhere you listen to podcasts, especially really good ones like this one.
Yes.
Also, this episode is brought to you by Area Pro. Go back a couple episodes and take a look at our demo. We think that this is a product that every real estate professional should be using. And today we have an awesome episode for you. But first, what do we need to tell them about?
We need to tell them to go watch the last episode, which is one of our favorites, which is how to put the cult in culture.
How to put the cult in culture.
Yep.
Yes.
So today we have win-lose relationships, when to be all in or all out.
Okay, win-lose relationships. So we think that this is a really important conversation. And I would maybe even just make the statement that relationships are the most important thing in life. Right? Our relationship with God, our relationship with other people, our relationship with our families. When you talk to people and you ask them about their motivation, so many times people talk about their families and they talk about, different levels of relationship. And whenever you're in business, you have to be in relationships. There's just no way around it. The question is, are you good at it? And do you know your way around different types of relationships?
Nice. So we should probably start with defining business relationships. What are the areas or the categories that we're going to talk about? Yeah,
so there's really like three functional levels of relationship that we find ourselves in business. One is, and they're all forms of partnership, right? So one is we have a partnership with people who serve our businesses or we serve their businesses. So in our business, this can be mortgage, title, home inspectors, insurance companies, contractors. There's lots of people around us that we end up in partnerships with, and some of those are really have the ability to be long-standing, really good partnerships. Some of them can be more transactional, but that's kind of the first layer of partnership we find ourselves with. The second layer of partnership that we find ourselves in is when you build your real estate business to a certain point, you find that you need to have people either come work for you or work inside of your business structure. And so these are people that you're bringing into your life. They have a massive financial impact on you, and you have a massive financial impact on them. And the third layer of a relationship really are our actual formal structured business partnerships. So that's going to be, we decide to go launch a venture together. We decide to be business partners, form an LLC, and go into business together. And so all of those partnerships have different layers or different levels, you could say, of commitment, but they fundamentally have the same principles that apply to all relationships.
Nice. So if you thought you were an independent contractor and you were just by yourself and you didn't have to have relationships with anybody, you're wrong.
Yeah. So because you're technically an independent contractor when it comes to your relationship with the government, or if you're inside of a real estate sales practice, you have an independent contractor agreement. The reality is that the way that we are created is we are highly interdependent with other people. And so the better job we do at getting into business or getting into relationships and partnerships with the right people, knowing when that's a good decision, when it's not a good decision, that has a massive impact on your trajectory.
So what is the process for us to get into the relationship, or where do we start?
Yeah, so where we start is exactly that. It's what do we do to enter into a relationship? And so we can speak to this from the highest level, which would be a partnership, right? An actual business partnership. And then everything else is just a lessened version of that. So the way that I think about relationships is all of my relationships with other people are some lesser level of commitment to the commitment I have with my wife. Right? And so because of that, we want to have healthy relationships. And the way that we the way that we have to start that is we have to ask ourselves the question, what do we do to really get into healthy relationships? And the thing that I would say that you're always trying to sort out, whether it's a lender partner that you're going to work with or somebody you're going to bring into your organization or somebody you're going to partner with, is you are trying to figure out this question, do I trust this person? Right? So let me take kind of a brief sidebar here. One of the conversations that comes up so very often in our industry is somebody's out, they're producing real estate, they're selling, they're doing their thing, and somebody comes into the industry and they're new and they're really excited and really excitable, and then you have that person call you and they say, hey, this other guy, he wants to take over the world with me. I think we should start a partnership, right?
Right.
And what's your first thought when somebody says that?
Do you know them? Do you trust them?
Yeah. Are you equally yoked, right? Yeah. You sell $15 million for production a year. They have hopes and dreams and aspirations of doing that, but those are not the same thing. So what you're trying to figure out is, do I trust them? And so the first place that you go maybe is, well, yeah, my gut says they're a good person. That's great. Right. What a cool place to start. But that's not a process. And anything we do in our businesses or our lives that we don't have some level of a model or a process to is really highly subject to our emotions. We're already probably overly subject to our emotions anyway. Mm-hmm. But if we can put some guardrails and maybe around the way that we're thinking, and then we educate our actions by our thinking instead of directly from our emotions, we tend to make better decisions, right? Right. So we teach this at RMG, and that is that trust is something we need to be able to break down into different components. So usually when I ask the question, do you trust this person? The first thing that comes into somebody's mind is their character, right? Do I trust their character? And the answer might be yes, we go way back like Cadillac seats, right? We've known each other forever. That's awesome, right? But it's really only one of the pieces. You do need to have a process to be able to figure out, does this person have the right character to be in business with? Part of character isn't just will they lie, cheat, and steal, but do they have the right temperament? And do I have the right temperament to be in business together? Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have the right temperament, that is a part of your character, right? So we need to be able to ask great questions to be able to figure out, does this person have the right character? But the other two components are usually where we miss this and we don't have a process, right? And that is, I need to figure out, is this person competent? Do they know what they're doing? Can they be my business partner? Because when they walk in, the different gifts and skills that they have are in alignment with the different gifts and skills that I have. And are they at the same level? Or in the case of somebody coming into your business, are they at a level that I can now take them and move them to the next level? And am I willing to put in the energy to get their competence to where it needs to be? Right. If their competence is not already at your level or somewhere in that vicinity, they're really not qualified to be a business partner. They may be qualified to come work inside of your company, right? So I need to figure out their competence. In the case of a lender, right? I trust this person, but are they a competent lender? Because you getting paid or somebody inside of your organization getting paid is dependent on that person being competent, mm-hmm. right? The third one is simply, do they have the capacity? And this is a really, really big one, because if somebody has the character and they have the competence, but let's just say you need somebody full time, but because of other commitments that they have in their life, they simply don't have the capacity, mm-hmm. they're not going to be trustworthy. And it's not because of their character. It's not because they don't know what they're doing. It's because the load that you need them to carry or the pace that you need them to run, or if you flip the script, what they need from you is not going to allow you to be able to enter into that partnership and be able to be successful.
Yeah, I love this model. I think that there's a lot of people, especially in our industry, that are making their first hire or bringing somebody on, and their first initial response is, I'm gonna hire my friend, or I'm gonna hire my family member, or my sister could help me with this. This helps you weed out some of those hires that could be really damaging to your personal life, right? Yeah. And so I think our first inclination in this is you want to hire somebody that you already know because you've already built a level of trust. Mm-hmm. And this helps you take that and protect from it, and also helps you build trust with somebody that maybe you don't potentially know as well, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I have somebody, let's say it's a family member. So one of the other things that happens when we're talking about family is we can give people a hall pass on their character because we just kind of, we just turn a blind eye to it. But that really shows up poorly inside of our businesses if we're not paying attention. So, okay, so if the very first thing that I need to figure out is at whatever level of relationship I'm going to be with this person, do I trust that person at that level? Now, not everybody has to reach the same level of trust when it comes to having access to our life or our business, but still pretty darn important when it comes to all three of these business arrangements. So I need to be able to have a process to be able to vet people when it comes to them having a place, whether it's in consistently servicing our business or being in the business or being a partner. And so that starts out with an interview process. So what I'm really trying to figure out is if my goal is to figure out, do I trust this person? I have to be able to figure out who they are. And so different behavioral assessments can be really helpful. Lots and lots of conversation. I prefer really a lot of face-to-face time because if somebody is interviewing and they're kind of in interview mode, they're giving you the best version of themselves. But if I can log enough time face-to-face with somebody and I can ask really deep questions, at some point, it's really hard to keep up that facade. And really what I'm looking for is, do I know this person? Do I really know them? Because from that point, I can say, okay, can I start to check these boxes? So I'm going to have a list of interview questions. I'm going to have behavioral assessments that I'm going to go through. And a third thing that I'm going to do with this is I'm going to call references. And if you've ever hired, this can be the most painful feeling thing ever. But if I can hire references and I can go multiple levels deep with people that are unscripted and willing to talk to me about this person, I'm going to be able to find out more and more about whether I can trust them. And it's really funny, honestly, if somebody's younger than maybe 35, their parents, if they're still alive and they have any sort of relationship, parents are unbelievably unfiltered. They really want to see their kids succeed, but they also will kind of give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's really interesting. I've had people give me ex-spouses or ex-boyfriends or girlfriends as well, and it's really impactful when you're looking to be in business with somebody and you talk to their former boyfriend and they have nothing but good things to say about that person. It really does speak a lot to them, right? So that's going to be for hiring somebody, and then of course that's going to be for partnership. The other thing to think about is getting into any level of relationship with somebody. A lot of times you're doing, not always all the time, but a lot of times you're doing it at an inflection point of pain, right? And when you're in an inflection point of pain, you are more likely to make an emotional decision that will solve your immediate pain, but will cause you pain for a very, very long period of time. So that's why committing to a process is important. The second thing, the fourth thing when it comes to a process is very clear expectations. One of the best ways to ruin a relationship is to have somebody that you probably should be in whatever level of business with, but you don't have clear expectations, and that erodes the relationship.
Yeah, so just to piggyback on a few of the things that you talked about. So the trust, interview process, references. I know that a lot of people will treat references like they're a checkbox in a process that they have to do, and you just kind of half-heartedly go through it. We have not hired people based on references.
Sure.
And we've had references that are validation to some of the things that you're seeing or feeling that are the last foot in the door for you to go forward with somebody, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So, and then clear expectations is probably more important for them as it is for you, but it needs to be theirs, because if somebody doesn't have the expectations of what they need to be doing, then they don't know exactly what they're jumping into.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you were talking to a lender partner and you have the expectation that they have a turnaround on a pre-qualification within 24 hours, but you never told them that, and their standard is to fully have somebody qualified inside of 72 hours, you spend all the time together, this is a great person, you really want to be in business, and you do your first transaction, and instantly you have a mismatch of trust, right? And it has to do with your process, and it has to do with setting expectations.
Yep. And then we've done some other episodes as far as hiring out of pain. We've done episodes on goal setting and planning and doing all of those things. And you really should be hiring to an org chart that fulfills the plan that you have in place, opposed to hiring when you absolutely need it, because you really should have hired probably 3 months ago or 5 months ago. Because when you hire out of pain, you're already in a tough situation, and then you try to jump back into training this person or coaching this person or bringing on a new relationship partner, and you're trying to figure out how that's going to work, and it slows down your business. It hurts you a ton.
So now we go from, okay, so now I have somebody who we are equally yoked when it comes to a partnership. I'm satisfied with this. By the way, I've gone through another step, and that is that I use trusted people that are in my life to also take a look at that person to know, just to make sure I'm not starstruck, right? Yep. And looking through rose-colored glasses.
So now we've hired this person. How do we interact in the partnership?
Okay, so once I'm in whatever layer of partnership, and we'll just use maybe an actual partnership for this, is I've established that I think that this is somebody that I can trust. And trust is an entry point to something else that's really important in a relationship, and that is actually love, right? If you're going to be in business with somebody, you need to love them. Right? And it's a little bit like trust, where you say like, well, do I trust somebody? Yeah, like I get a good feeling about them. Okay. When I say, do I love that person? That makes some people feel a little bit, like we're talking about business, right? What is happening? Well, if we do the same thing, we say, okay, so what is a functional way that love looks in a relationship? Because remember, if I have a business partnership, this is like a marriage. I mean, most business partnerships are more contractually obligated, at least higher level ones, than even a marriage, right? So you really got to pay attention to this. The question is now, do I love this person? Do we act loving towards each other? So what does that mean? Well, first of all, it means, do I have a deep-seated level of commitment to this person? And in a partnership, the answer has to be very, very deeply seated commitment. With somebody inside of your organization, there is going to be a deep-seated commitment for their growth and for them moving forward and them hitting their goals. And there's also going to be more strings attached to their commitment, because the commitment on all of these has elements of performance attached to it, right? So my commitment in these relationships is conditional. But if I have expectations set and I'm clear, I have an understanding of what those conditions are. They're not conditions based off of my emotions in the moment. So the commitment is something that supersedes my emotions, or maybe is deeper than my emotion, because I have to be able to have any of these work really, really well. I'm going to have to be able to navigate high levels of conflict. I'm going to have to be able to have hard times with this person. I'm going to have to be able to continue to walk through life with this person, knowing that the standards of commitment are met, or the standards of commitment are something that we're actively like having hard conversations about. I have to be able to continue to move that forward in love, right? So now that we've established, in this relationship, there's a level of commitment. Now, the other two elements are care and candor. And something John Maxwell says is that care broadens a relationship and candor deepens a relationship. And so if you have a business partner that you're committed to, you have to be able to not just care, because if you ask anybody, hey, do you care about people you're in business with? Oh, of course I care. That's not helpful. What's helpful is if you can answer the question, I actively express care to this other person. They know I care, not just like, oh, they know I care, but they know it because there are all of these actions and attitudes and things that I've done and said that have been caring, right? So that's going to broaden the base of the relationship. Candor is this third part. If I'm going to be in partnership with somebody, we have to be able to have hard conversations, right? By the way, not just in one direction. We have to be able to have bilateral hard conversations to be able to deepen the relationship. So if you look up and you look at your most valuable relationships in your life, you will find that those relationships have the most conflict in them, right? They are fully committed. relationships that have a deep expression of care and then also have a lot of candor or opportunity for conflict, because that makes the relationship deeper.
What marriage doesn't have some level of candor, right?
Yeah. The first time somebody says, "Oh, me and my spouse never fight." Ooh, okay, that's a huge red flag. That's maybe the biggest red flag in marriage.
Yeah, you got married last week. That sounds what it sounds like.
You got married last week, or you don't talk about hard things. And man, like you're in for a rough go at it.
Yeah. So we did an exercise at our retreat with the whole company, and we went through this model. And one of the things that was really interesting is that between care and candor, people usually have a bias.
Yeah, it is really important to know that about you, right? Even commitment, right? Some people, when they think of love, they think commitment, right? When other people think of love, they think care, right? Expressing care to everybody, that's love. Other people look at it and they say, candor. If I really love somebody, I'm going to tell them the truth. The reality is all three of those are incredibly toxic, and they are not in and of themselves love. They can be incredibly toxic, but they're not in their entirety love. They all create, they're all needed to be able to create kind of a holistic view of what it means to be in a loving relationship. Yep. Right. So I think of, we have a lender in Alaska that we've been in a relationship with now for, I think, over 12 years. And the level of commitment that we have has allowed us to build a deeply caring relationship to where there's a lot of personal interactions and relationships with the people that are inside of this company. And holy smokes, over 12 years and 40 agents, lots and lots of hard conversations, mismatched expectations, them falling short, us falling short, miscommunications, all of those things. And because we're in business with them, and because we have this long committed relationship with them, it stood the test of time, because to that commitment, we've been able to add care and candor.
So during this, we're going to be having intentional time for meetings, accountability, and then anything time needs to come up for conflict, right?
Yeah, you hear people say it about kids, right? Time is, or love is spelled Time. Right? And there's probably some truth to that. And that is that if I have a loving relationship, if I have a business relationship at any of these levels, there has to be intentional time set aside. So that's going to be meeting with them, talking about their goals and talking about mutual goals, holding them to accountability, or even having them hold you to accountability if there's mutual expectations, right? And then being able to create the time, not just to have conflict, but to actually mine for conflict, to dig it out, to find the conflict. What are the underlying hard conversations that we need to have? Because if we do that from a place of care and commitment, we are able to engage candor.
Now we've come to a spot where we need to exit a partnership. How do we do that? Or when do we do that?
This one is really, really hard. Maybe more than anything else I've messed up in business is getting into business with the wrong people because of jumping the gun on the process, or not exiting at the appropriate time. And for me, typically that's far too late. And I have that tendency. And I think a lot of people in our industry do. And that's not necessarily a bad thing to give people the benefit of the doubt, but there is a point in time where if you're honest with yourself, you realize we are in a win-lose relationship. And win-lose relationships become lose-lose relationships. So I might be losing and you might be winning, but pretty soon we're both going to be losing, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. And so when we get to this point in a relationship, it's typically because there is a breakdown of the very thing that we started this relationship with, which is, do I trust you? Mm-hmm. And trust breaks down because of character, because of competence, because of capacity, or some version of that. What does sometimes typically happen is that capacity, if not grown, and competence, if not grown over time, becomes character. It kind of becomes who you are, right? Mm-hmm. That becomes problematic. And at that point, trust is eroded. And so if I now know that we don't have a trusting relationship, then love is built off of trust. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm probably withholding love from you. That may mean I'm withholding commitment, right? Not committed to the relationship the way I once was. I may be withholding care. I'm not saying kind things or encouraging things the way I did. Or, you know what? I love you, man. I care about you. I'm not saying anything about you. I don't care enough about your life to have the hard conversations anymore, right? That is fundamentally the erosion of trust. And so now we find ourselves in this place where we have a breakdown of trust, and there's a couple things to do here. Number one is, depending on the level of relationship that you have, is how hard you fight to reestablish trust. Right? Depends on how bad it's been violated. Like some trust things, especially when they're deeply rooted in character, you have to part ways, right? But a lot of times you get into this place where there's been an erosion of trust, but it's such a deep level relationship, you're gonna fight for it and you're gonna go to war for it, which means I have to intentionally choose love, which is I have to choose to be committed, choose to care, and choose to have candor to the point where I find a win-win or an impasse. And at the point I find an impasse, that's the point where we have to part ways, right? And this is where I've messed this up so many times, is that you look and you're just not willing to be candid sometimes with yourself. That's been my experience, to acknowledge that you're in a win-lose relationship. And once you find you're in the win-lose relationship, then you just let it ride. Right, and you let it ride, in my case, by not having candor, right? Like just not saying the hard things anymore. But if you find yourself in this place, now it's time to exit the relationship. And the hard thing about exiting relationships is it will cost you something. The harder thing about exiting relationships is if you don't exit it now, it will cost you more. There is no real chance for it to not cost you, right? Every broken relationship, like you've had a lender relationship for 5 years and now you got to go find a new lender. You're rebuilding that dance, right? How do we work together? All of that stuff. You're working with people inside of your organization for a long period of time, and now you have to part ways. That's really hard. And so just know that exits are going to be hard. Delayed exits are going to be sometimes infinitely harder.
Okay, well, I think this was a pretty awesome episode.
Yeah. Good.
And for you out there that are trying to decide whether or not to get into a relationship for somebody on your team, or a partnership, or a servicing deal, now you have a model to be able to evaluate those, how to interview for them, look for clear expectations for them, interact within the relationship, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you need to exit.
Yeah, and if we zoom all the way out to talking about I would say it's a pet peeve of mine when people say, hey, I want to be in partnership, right? I am massively pro partnership. What I've learned over the years is what that means for people who are experienced in being in partnership is very different than the random person that just gets overly excited in a moment and decides they want to be in a partnership. So if you find yourself looking to enter into your first partnership in real estate, then I would just say reach out to us, because I've navigated this many, many, many times. There's a good chance that you're overly emotional about it and you're not thinking about all the nuances. There's a good chance it could be a bad idea. There's a chance it could be a good idea. Either way, love to help you kind of sort through that, ask you some questions to help you not end up in a relationship that you don't trust, that you don't love, and ultimately have a delayed exit that costs you a ton.
Yeah, awesome. Yep, definitely reach out to us. And as always, we are here to impact, empower, and encourage you in all things that you do.
Awesome, guys. All right, thanks for joining us again. And if you would, go to areapro.com/RMG. Check out the product. Take care, guys. Have a great one.